They gave Socrates poison for asking too many questions. Today, we give idiots platforms, millions of followers, and the power to shape reality. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to admit. We're living in the golden age of stupidity, where the loudest fool in the room is crowned king, while wisdom is treated like a disease that needs to be cured. You've felt it, haven't you? That nauseating feeling when you watch someone confidently wrong get celebrated while actual experts get silenced. When critical thinking became dangerous misinformation and blind agreement became being educated. When did we start worshiping the very ignorance that's destroying us? In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how we got here, from Socrates to social media stupidity, and more importantly, how the algorithm of ignorance has hijacked your mind without you even knowing it. You'll discover why your smartest friends stay quiet while the dumbest ones won't shut up, and why that's not an accident, but a feature of our broken system. But here's what makes this different from every other video complaining about society. I'm going to hand you the exact mental weapons to break free from this cult of idiocracy. These aren't feel-good platitudes. These are battle-tested strategies from philosophy's greatest minds that actually work in our digital hellscape. If this resonates with you, if you're tired of watching civilization celebrate its own intellectual suicide, then hit that like button right now and subscribe. Not for me, but as a signal that there are still people who value wisdom over virality. Because every subscription tells the algorithm that maybe, just maybe, people still want to think. Picture this. A man walks through ancient Athens, claiming he knows nothing, yet the oracle at Delphi declares him the wisest of all Greeks. That's Socrates for you, history's greatest intellectual troll who exposed everyone's ignorance by admitting his own. He understood something we've forgotten in our age of instant Google expertise and Wikipedia wisdom. True intelligence isn't about how much you know, it's about recognizing the vast ocean of what you don't know. Today, we've flipped this ancient wisdom on its head, creating a society where the loudest voices claim absolute certainty about everything from vaccines to quantum physics after watching a 3-minute YouTube video. The Socratic paradox reveals an uncomfortable truth about human nature that's even more relevant in our digital age. When Socrates said, "I know that I know nothing," he wasn't being falsely modest. He was highlighting how intellectual humility opens the door to genuine learning. But here's where it gets interesting. This admission of ignorance actually threatened the power structures of Athens so much that they gave him hemlock for breakfast. Sound familiar? Today's truth seekers face their own version of hemlock: cancellation, mockery, and algorithmic burial. The establishment hasn't changed much in 2,400 years. It still fears those who dare to question rather than blindly accept. What made Socrates dangerous wasn't his knowledge. It was his method of revealing how little everyone else actually knew. Through simple questions, he'd unravel the false confidence of politicians, poets, and craftsmen who believed their narrow expertise made them wise about everything. This is exactly what we're seeing with today's social media stupidity epidemic. Everyone's an expert because they read a headline, watched a documentary, or worse, did their own research in echo chambers that confirm their biases. The Dunning-Kruger effect isn't just a psychological phenomenon anymore. It's become our cultural operating system. The real kicker? In Socrates' time, at least people had to face their ignorance in person, in the agora, where critical thinking could challenge empty rhetoric. Now, we've built digital fortresses where ignorance reinforces itself through likes, shares, and algorithmic validation. We've created a world where admitting "I don't know" is seen as weakness, while confidently spouting nonsense gets you 1 million followers. And just as Athens chose to silence Socrates rather than face uncomfortable truths, we're about to see how modern Sophists have perfected the art of selling ignorance as wisdom. Remember the Sophists? Those ancient Greek influencers who charged hefty fees to teach rhetoric over truth, style over substance? Well, they're back, and this time they've got blue check marks and sponsorship deals. Today's digital sophists don't need the agora. They've got Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter where wisdom is measured in engagement metrics rather than actual insight. These modern merchants of superficial culture have mastered the art of packaging ignorance as expertise, selling certainty to masses desperate for simple answers to complex questions. The scariest part? They genuinely believe their own hype, confusing viral reach with intellectual authority. The parallel between ancient sophists and today's influencer culture is almost too perfect. Both groups discovered that people don't actually want truth. They want validation, entertainment, and easy answers that don't challenge their worldview. Modern social media has become the ultimate sophist training ground, where the algorithm rewards controversial hot takes over nuanced analysis, where a clever soundbite beats a well-reasoned argument every time. Watch how quickly a simplified, often wrong explanation goes viral, while actual experts' careful explanations die in obscurity. The sophists would be proud of how we've industrialized their methods. But here's where it gets truly insidious. These digital sophists aren't just selling bad ideas. They're rewiring our brains to prefer them. Every scroll through social media trains us to value quick dopamine hits over deep understanding, to mistake confidence for competence. The loudest fools have figured out the game. Speak with absolute certainty, never admit mistakes, attack anyone who questions you, and wrap it all in just enough truth to seem credible. This isn't just anti-intellectualism. It's intellectual junk food designed to be addictive. And just like junk food, we know it's bad for us, but we can't stop consuming it. The ancient Athenians at least had Socrates to challenge their sophists. But who challenges ours? The very platforms that host these conversations are designed to prevent deep dialogue and critical thinking. Try having a nuanced discussion in 280 characters or a 30-second video. The medium has become the message, and the message is clear. Complexity is boring, outrage is profitable, and the masses prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. This creates the perfect breeding ground for what psychologists now recognize as an epidemic of false confidence. Here's a mind-bending truth. The less you know about something, the more likely you are to think you're an expert. This isn't just an opinion. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect, and it's become the unofficial religion of our time. The incompetent don't just fail to recognize their incompetence. They're literally too incompetent to know they're incompetent. It's like being too drunk to know you're drunk, except instead of slurred speech, you get confident proclamations about complex topics you barely understand. This psychological blind spot has always existed, but social media has turned it into a superpower, giving the most ignorant among us the loudest megaphones. Think about the last time you saw someone confidently wrong on the internet. They weren't just mistaken. They were aggressively evangelical about their wrongness. That's because incompetence comes with a special gift, unshakable confidence. When you don't know enough to see the complexity of a problem, everything seems simple. Climate change? Simple. Economics? Simple. Pandemic response? Child's play. This false confidence is intoxicating, both for those who possess it and those who follow them. In a world full of uncertainty and anxiety, the person who claims to have all the answers becomes a beacon, even if they're leading everyone straight off a cliff. The real tragedy of our Dunning-Kruger empire isn't just that idiots think they're geniuses. It's that actual experts doubt themselves. The more you truly know about something, the more you understand its complexity, the more humble you become. This creates an inverse relationship where wisdom breeds uncertainty while ignorance breeds confidence. Guess which one wins in the attention economy? The thoughtful expert who says it depends and we need more data can't compete with the charismatic fool who promises simple solutions. We've created a system where intellectual humility is a disadvantage and cognitive bias is a winning strategy. What's particularly dangerous is how this effect scales with modern technology. In the past, the village idiot could only influence the village. Now, thanks to the algorithm of ignorance, they can influence millions. The herd mentality kicks in, and suddenly what started as one person's misconception becomes a movement. The worst part? When you're trapped in the Dunning-Kruger effect, criticism doesn't enlighten you, it validates you. Every expert who disagrees is part of the conspiracy. Every fact check is fake news. And speaking of criticism, we're about to discover why questioning anything has become an act of rebellion. When did asking why become an act of aggression? When did "I'm not sure about that" turn into fighting words? Somewhere along the way, we've created a culture where questioning isn't just discouraged, it's actively punished. The modern truth seekers, those who dare to think critically and challenge mass manipulation, find themselves in the same position as Socrates, branded as dangerous, corrupting influences who must be silenced. But unlike ancient Athens, we don't need hemlock anymore. We have cancel culture, algorithmic suppression, and social exile, much more efficient and leaves no physical evidence. The war on questions isn't accidental, it's by design. Every authoritarian system, whether political, religious, or corporate, depends on unquestioning compliance. But here's the twist: we're not living under traditional authoritarianism. Instead, we've created a crowdsourced tyranny where the masses police themselves, attacking anyone who dares to think differently. Watch what happens when someone questions the prevailing narrative on any controversial topic. They're not met with counterarguments. They're met with accusations, labels, and attempts to destroy their reputation. The message is clear: conform or be cast out. This isn't just anti-intellectualism, it's intellectual terrorism. The persecution of critical thinking has created what I call intellectual learned helplessness. People have been trained, like lab rats getting shocked, to avoid the pain of questioning. It's easier to go along with whatever the mob believes today, even if it contradicts what they believed yesterday. This creates a society of intellectual zombies, shambling from one trending opinion to another, never stopping to ask if any of it makes sense. The saddest part? Many people know something's wrong, but are too scared to say it. They've seen what happens to those who speak up, and they've decided that keeping their thoughts to themselves is safer than risking social execution. But here's what the mob doesn't understand. Every question they silence, every thinker they cancel, every moment of critical thinking they suppress makes society weaker and more vulnerable to manipulation. We're creating generations who've never learned to think, only to repeat. They've never learned to question, only to accept. And when you can't question, you can't grow, you can't adapt, you can't solve new problems. You become intellectually brittle, ready to shatter at the first real challenge. And speaking of psychological safety, let's examine why so many choose the comfort of following fools. There's a dirty little secret about human psychology that nobody wants to admit. Being wrong with everyone else feels better than being right alone. This herd mentality isn't a bug in human programming. It's a feature that kept our ancestors alive when standing out from the group meant becoming saber-toothed tiger lunch. But what saved us on the savannah is killing us in civilization. Following the crowd, even when the crowd is following fools, provides a psychological comfort that wisdom never can. When everyone's wrong together, nobody's really wrong, right? This is the dark mathematics of mass delusion. The comfort of conformity runs deeper than most people realize. It's not just about fitting in. It's about offloading the exhausting burden of thinking for yourself. When you follow the herd, you don't have to wrestle with uncertainty, question your beliefs, or take responsibility for your choices. The crowd thinks for you, decides for you, and most importantly, absolves you. Everyone was doing it becomes the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. This is why people will literally follow idiots off a cliff while ignoring the wise person screaming warnings. The fool promises belonging. The sage promises only truth, and truth is often lonely. But here's where it gets really twisted. The modern world has weaponized our herd instinct against us. Marketing, politics, and social media have turned our tribal psychology into a remote control for human behavior. They've learned that you don't need to convince everyone. Just create the illusion that everyone's already convinced. Social proof, manufactured consensus, bot armies, and coordinated campaigns create false herds that real humans instinctively follow. We're not just following fools anymore. We're following algorithmic phantoms designed to lead us wherever someone wants us to go. The superficial culture we're drowning in isn't an accident. It's social engineering. The sages, the critical thinkers, the ones who see through this manipulation become threats not just to the system, but to the psychological comfort of the herd. When someone breaks from the group to follow wisdom instead of popularity, they force others to confront an uncomfortable question. What if I'm wrong? Most people would rather attack the questioner than face that possibility. This is why Socrates had to die, why truth seekers throughout history have been martyred, and why today's independent thinkers are digitally crucified. They remind the herd that they have a choice, and choice implies responsibility. And speaking of digital crucifixion, let's see how technology turns stupidity into a superpower. We built machines to make us smarter, but we programmed them to make us dumber. The algorithm of ignorance isn't a bug. It's the entire business model. Every major platform's AI is optimized for one thing: engagement. And what engages humans more than nuanced truth? Outrage, fear, confirmation bias, and simple answers to complex questions. The machines learned quickly that stupidity spreads faster than wisdom, that lies travel 6 times faster than truth, and that angry idiots generate more ad revenue than thoughtful sages. We've literally created artificial intelligence that rewards human stupidity. Think about how these algorithms actually work. They don't care if information is true, valuable, or harmful. They only care if it keeps you scrolling. The system learns your biases and feeds them back to you in an endless loop, creating what I call intellectual incest. Your own thoughts breeding with themselves until they produce increasingly deformed offspring. You think you're exploring diverse content, but you're actually trapped in an echo chamber so sophisticated that it feels like freedom. The algorithm knows that challenging your beliefs makes you uncomfortable, and discomfort makes you leave. So it serves you a steady diet of validation disguised as information. The real genius of the algorithm of ignorance is how it exploits our cognitive weaknesses at scale. It knows we prefer simple explanations to complex ones, emotional responses to rational analysis, and tribal validation to objective truth. Every click, like, and share teaches it how to manipulate us better. We're not using social media. It's using us, turning our minds into prediction machines for advertiser profit. The platforms have become digital casinos where the house always wins, and the currency isn't money. It's our capacity for critical thinking. Each scroll makes us a little dumber, a little more reactive, a little less capable of independent thought. But here's the darkest part. We know this. Studies show it, whistleblowers confirm it, and our own experience validates it. Yet we can't stop. We're addicted to our own intellectual destruction. Dopamine junkies mainlining stupidity through our screens. The machines have learned to hack our reward systems so effectively that we choose digital validation over actual wisdom. We've created a technological tower of Babel where everyone's shouting, but nobody's thinking. The question isn't whether we can break free, it's whether we even want any more. But for those who do, for those who still have the courage to reclaim their minds. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to hear. Escaping the cult of idiocracy isn't just about changing what you consume. It's about changing who you are. The spell of stupidity isn't just external. It's colonized your mind, rewired your neurons, and infected your thought patterns. Breaking free requires something most people aren't willing to do. Admit they've been fooled. Not once, not twice, but systematically for years. Your first step toward wisdom is accepting that you're probably dumber than you think. And that's actually good news. Because unlike the Dunning-Kruger victims, you can now start the real work of thinking. The Socratic method isn't just ancient history. It's your weapon against modern manipulation. Start questioning everything, especially your own beliefs. When you feel certain about something, ask yourself, how do I know this? When everyone agrees on something, ask, what if we're all wrong? When information triggers strong emotions, ask, who benefits from me feeling this way? These questions are like antibiotics for intellectual infection. They're uncomfortable, sometimes painful, but they're the only cure for cognitive bias. The goal isn't to become a cynic who believes nothing. It's to become a critical thinker who questions everything before believing anything. But here's the real secret to breaking the spell. You can't do it alone. The myth of the lone genius is just that, a myth. Even Socrates had his disciples, his dialectic partners, his community of seekers. Find your tribe, but not the usual social media echo chambers. Look for people who challenge you, who disagree respectfully, who value truth over comfort. Create what I call intellectual fight clubs, spaces where ideas can battle without destroying friendships. Read books that make you uncomfortable. Engage with thinkers who threaten your worldview. Train your mind like an athlete trains their body, with resistance, discipline, and gradual progression. The final piece of reclaiming your mind is accepting that it's a lifelong battle, not a one-time victory. The forces of stupidity aren't going away. They're getting stronger, more sophisticated, more seductive. Every day, you'll face the choice between comfortable ignorance and uncomfortable wisdom. Most days, ignorance will seem more appealing. But remember this, in a world designed to make you stupid, thinking clearly is an act of rebellion. In a society that worships idiots, wisdom is revolution. You won't save the world, but you might save yourself. And in an age where everyone's losing their minds, keeping yours might be the greatest achievement of all. So here we are at the crossroads where Socrates stood 2,400 years ago. The same choice that got him killed is now in front of you. Will you choose the comfortable stupidity of the herd or the uncomfortable wisdom of the truth seekers? Will you let the algorithm of ignorance continue to puppet your thoughts, or will you cut the strings and think for yourself? Look, I get it. It's easier to just go along with the mob, to let social media think for you, to trade your critical thinking for the warm embrace of belonging. But here's what nobody tells you. Every time you choose comfort over truth, you're not just betraying your intelligence. You're contributing to the very system that's making humanity dumber. You become part of the problem you complain about. The question isn't whether society worships idiots. We've proven that beyond doubt. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Will you start questioning everything, especially your own beliefs? Will you seek out uncomfortable truths instead of comfortable lies? Will you have the courage to admit, I don't know, in a world that rewards fake certainty? Your mind is either your greatest asset or someone else's remote control. The choice is yours. But choose quickly, because every day you wait, the Dunning-Kruger empire grows stronger, the digital sophists get richer, and the persecution of questions gets more violent. If this video opened your eyes even a little bit, then you know what to do. Subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, and more importantly, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because the only thing necessary for the triumph of stupidity is for smart people to stay silent. And remember, in a world designed to make you stupid, thinking clearly isn't just self-defense, it's revolution.